So Chuck, what's been bugging you lately?
Dorian, Maria, Irma.
Your ex-girlfriend?
No.
Hurricanes. I get it. I get
How
it.
do they form is really.
How do they form? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if people know that each of these low pressure systems that build up in the South Atlantic, they each get named alphabetically, alternating boy name, girl name. So that's how you know how deep into the hurricane season you are,
right?
The storm season, by how far down the alphabet you've gone.
Wow.
And so, do you think people know how they're formed?
No. Go ahead.
Okay, I need an Earth.
The only
there it goes.
Oh, wow, look at that. Any planet you want is here.
Yeah, any of the 8 planets, get over it. Okay. So we all know Earth rotates.
Right.
And on the equator, they actually rotate faster than anybody else. Their speed through space is faster.
Makes sense.
Because they make a day's trip like everybody else does, but they've gone 25,000 miles.
Okay.
And anyone else has gone
less.
All right. That's fact number 1. Fact number 2, let's throw a low pressure system in the Atlantic. And you're a puffy cloud. Which way are you going to go?
You're going to push me north.
Yeah, so all the system will push you north towards that low pressure system.
Right.
And and another puffy cloud north of the low pressure system. Which way are you going to go?
I'm going to go south.
You're going to go south. So the low pressure system attracts all clouds.
Right. Oh, wow.
Calling all clouds. So there they go. Now, if that kept up, they would just sort of meet in the middle.
Right.
But that's not what happens.
How you doing?
That's not what happens because everybody has sideways motion.
Right.
And I'm a cloud south of that low pressure system, and I go towards it, but wait a minute, I have speed that will overtake it.
Right.
Because I'm going sideways faster than it is.
Okay.
It'll overtake it to the right.
Right.
Now you're above, and you're headed towards it, you're going to fall behind it to the right.
Oh.
And that creates a general circulation of all weather around a low pressure system. And that's what we call a storm. And so, Chuck, it probably makes sense that if you repeat this in the southern hemisphere, everything is going to move in the opposite direction. So storms in the southern hemisphere actually rotate clockwise. And that would mean a storm on the equator wouldn't know which way to rotate.
You got a storm-free zone?
It's a storm-free zone.
Nice.
There you go. So, Chuck, the fact that things circulate in this way, with clouds from below overtaking and from above falling behind. That was studied by a guy named Coriolis, and it's called the Coriolis force.
Ah.
So it's not really a force, but it looks like there's a force pushing things, and that's what happens when you're on rotating surfaces. And not only that, how do you get a cloud in the first place? You need moist air that's unstable, which means it'll rise.
Right.
So if you have moist, rising air, it's colder up there than down here.
Right.
You know that, have you ever been in an airplane and look at the temperature outside the plane?
Not very pleasant.
No, it's like 40 below zero.
Right.
Because all the sunlight passes through our transparent atmosphere, hits the ground, and the ground heats the air.
Right.
The sun doesn't heat the atmosphere, except in some very special layers up there. The sun heats the ground heats the air.
So the radiation of heat back is where the energy's coming from.
Correct. That's what we feel, because that becomes back in infrared. That's how that works.
Cool.
Comes in as visible light, gets re-radiated as infrared.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happens? So the ground absorbs it and it re-radiates it later in the day. So the hottest time of day is not at peak heating.
No.
It's a little later when ground gives it back, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
The hottest month of the year is not June, which has the first day of summer, the longest day of the year, that has the most ground heat. No, because there's a delay. The oceans pick up this energy.
Right.
Okay, this heat, this thermal energy, and it gives it off later. So wait, when is hurricane season?
August.
It's August, September.
Right.
Okay, because Earth is beginning to cool down, but you have this heat source.
That's still,
and it's a moisture source.
Right.
And it's unstable.
Wow.
So the air rises, makes clouds, low pressure system gathers, you have a circulating system, thus is born a hurricane.
Boom!
Boom! Boom!
Look at that.
Now, hurricanes, the lower the low pressure system is,
right,
the more clouds it attracted, the more devastating the hurricane is, the faster it'll turn everything.
Look at that.
Yeah, so that's that. Now, as it they can sometimes make a left turn into the Caribbean,
right,
as it so devastatingly does for the island countries there, or it can go up the coast.
Right.
All right. Now, if it goes over land, doesn't have the heat from the ocean, and so generally they lose their punch.
Less heat, less moisture.
Exactly. They generally lose their punch. But if it stays along the coast, it can stay potent. And they don't move very fast. I mean, along Earth's surface, 10 miles, 20 miles an hour tops.
Right.
Okay? That means if you do the math for how long it would take you to go up the coast, it can take weeks. Guaranteeing
But
that
I'm a hurricane. I got no place to be. I got time, baby.
Someplace along this coast, it's gonna landfall during high tide. Somebody's gonna get a high tide hurricane.
Right.
And that's bad. Because high tide can be bad enough, but a high tide that would be during full moon or during new moon. That's what I mean by high tide. Every day has a high tide. I'm talking about big high tide, right? Full moon, new moon. The hurricane hits you during one of those, you get extra tidal, you get storm surge as well as the tide surge.
Wow.
And so that can, particularly in the era of global warming where ocean levels are slowly creeping up, you can end up going over gates and jetties and levees or whatever is holding back the water. You can breach that. It just takes an inch to breach it, and
that's it.
That's it.
Flooded the city.
You flood the city.
Wow.
As long as the hurricane is there, you flood the city.
Get your buckets out.
And that's what happened in Hurricane Sandy here in New York. I lost electricity downtown.
Yeah.
Because they went over the sidewall.
That's all it was. Yeah. Yeah. And the storm surge was not even a foot.
It just has to be whatever it is
above.
Above, that's all you needed above the limit. Yeah, you got it. Whole underground parking lots, cars were bobbing out of the parking lot. So here we are in hurricane season. That's what's going on.
There you go. Everything you wanted to know about hurricanes and more right there. So if you did Coriolis or hurricanes or just StarTalk, make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell so that you don't miss an episode. And if you're so inclined, make sure that you support us on Patreon.
And as always,